think I would have gotten further quicker if I'd have been prepared to scare myself a little bit more. And now that's kind of all I'm looking to do, is to freak myself out and see where that lands me.
Welcome to The Backbone, a personal branding podcast that is for people that don't fit in a box. Today, we are joined by Rob Venice. Rob Venice is the founder of Motive, and he does some really, really cool stuff with offices and spaces. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, thank you.
Pretty good, yeah. Thanks for joining us.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea for Motive and what it is you actually do? Because I think it's super interesting and I've not heard of anyone that does it the way you do before.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background, I've spent the last 10 plus years in office design, being a creative director at design and build companies, and slowly kind of working my way from my graphic design and branding background into kind of being a bit more client facing. So working on the projects themselves and getting inside the brains of the clients and their employees themselves. And I found in the time that I was working in that space that people do functional very well, and they occasionally do beautiful very well, but rarely do they capture the essence of what that company is about. You can walk into a space and throw anybody's logo on the wall, and then it becomes a different person's space. But how are their specific stories being told in a way that nobody else could tell them? I'm a big believer in narrative behind anything that you're trying to enable somebody with, or trying to get someone to do. Try not to sound too manipulative here, but essentially, if you can back that up with a story, if you can make people emote, then your job is made so much easier. And likewise, when people start working in that space, when they I guess move into that office for the first time, if they can see themselves reflected in those walls within that design, and they feel like they're at home, then you're onto a winner. So yeah, I created Motive as a sort of, is a creative studio, but it's all about brand reflection, brand-led artwork, brand-led identity within spaces. And yeah, we're 2 years in now, and we've done some pretty special stuff. And we're just gonna try and keep on moving.
You've been really busy over those 2 years. Looking at your website, we were going through some of the designs you've done, and so you must have been absolutely flat out over the last few months.
It's an interesting one. The first year I'd say was much more successful than I expected it to be. Everybody's kind of preparing you for, I don't want to say failure, but they're preparing you for a tough entry into doing your own thing. And I was very fortunate with a lot of the people that I know in the industry, and with a lot of people that were aware that I was doing my own thing. So I got a few opportunities and made the most of those. And this second year, the second year has been the battle. I thought it was going to be a case of, smash the first year, let's move on to the next level, let's go bigger and better and more. And it's very much been a case of repeat work has been a real savior. The bonds that I've created with existing clients have been incredible, and that's kind of taken us through this year, because there was a big dip around the summertime where I was like, okay, bubbles burst, what do we do now? It's moving in the right direction again now, and some exciting things coming in the new year. So yeah, just as I'm sure you guys know, it's all about riding the waves, keeping a smile on your face, and trying to stay composed, whether things are ridiculously good or perhaps the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And you've worked with some really, really interesting clients over that time as well. So when you walk into a space or you start working with a client for the first time, like, what's the first thing you do? How do you start that process?
I want as much detail as possible. It's funny, like the majority of clients they might deem themselves not creative, or they might think that they don't really have a story to tell, and they'll fall back on brand guidelines or whatever their values or their mission statement is. But I want to know those human elements. I want to know if there are any inside jokes that are specific to that team. I want to know if there are reference points outside of their world. So if they're in banking, I want to know if there's a brand that they aspire to be like that's outside of that world, or a bar that they kind of gravitate towards because it feels like them. I want to know what I want to know what feels like them, why they employ the people they do, what makes them a certain type of person that's right for that company. And then you kind of boil it all down to who they are outside of who they would typically say they are on their website or whatever else. A really nice tool that I like to use is finding a focal point within pop culture. If they can say that their company is like a certain type of film or a TV series or an album, once they get their head out of, we're a bank and we do this kind of business and we're trying to sell to these people, if they start thinking of themselves as, I don't know, a Beatles album, for instance, then we can really get into the weeds of why that is and how to bring that to life in a tangible way that everybody can get behind and will understand.
That's interesting. I saw on your website, I won't say the business just in case, but one of the businesses chose Game of Thrones by the sounds of it. That seems like an interesting choice following what you've just said, to say that a company's like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, things like that, obviously, some are more of the moment than others. But it's funny, as soon as someone mentions something, and then you get the whole room and like, yes, we are, because of this person's like this, and we always say this and that. I did a job recently. In fact, we're on site at the moment where they couldn't come up with one. Everybody in the room was all over the place, and I kind of took it upon myself, took the work away with me, and I came back and I was like, right, guys, prepare yourself. I think you're Paddington. And you had some people like drop their heads and some people like cheering. And I was like, more specifically, Paddington 2. And then when you start to go into the detail as to why, and you see their eyes light up, and you see this kind of this sense of them being understood, it's a really smooth road from that point onwards, because everybody's behind that one way of thinking, that one sort of ideology. And that is essentially what we're trying to do in the work that we do. We want people to exist in a space where you're not being beaten over the head with, this is how you should work, this is how you should speak, this is the terminology you should use. It's more like aligning everybody in a certain direction with their own interpretation of what that could be, but very much backing each other and backing the company.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of similar to how we start working with our clients as well. I think you can ask people to write down their values and things like that, and you'll get some real stock answers. But actually, once you start digging into like the weeds of what people actually are really into and what they dig outside of work, it makes such a huge difference to like how you can actually create something for those people. And like, I think we've all been in offices in the past where you turn up and it's just like a grey room, boring desks, and like the mood of the room is horrible because you feel like you're trapped. So how much do you sort of take into account like the sort of feel and like the emotion of a business and how they're going to use that space? Like how do you build that into it?
I mean, it's key because, like you say, I worked with a really big publishing house last year who I'm going to say the names. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say the names. I'm going to say the names anyway. But they have the likes of Elle, Harper's Bazaar, Good Housekeeping, a real wide range of entities and people that read them and people that exist within there. But the overarching thing was, when we interview people or when people come in to work here, it doesn't feel like a fashion forward, cutting edge publishing house. It's like you say, it's grey walls, it's white walls. How do we bring to life that sentiment without doing more obvious things, without plastering the walls with like I say, values and how people should be working and all of that kind of thing. So it's huge. Use of space is humongous in terms of the importance of it, and everything. Like I say, when I have that initial meeting or all of the subsequent meetings as well, the more detail I can get, the better. Like how they're using it, how different types of people like using it. There was a big movement off the back of COVID where a lot of tech companies were going remote first. So you've got to take that into consideration as well. So they're not even trying to make their spaces destinational. They're not trying to bring people together again. It's more like a members club where you would tap into it for the benefits it can provide. So yeah, all of those things are hugely, hugely pivotal when you're thinking about how to bring a space to life, how to bring a brand to life.
Is that a conversation that's happening in the industry about getting people back into the offices through office design? It's
the biggest thing. There are people that have gone down the direction of cracking the whip and saying everyone must be in 3, 4, 5 times a week. There are some people that have gone the total opposite direction and been like, we're gonna treat you like adults and you can use the space as and when you want. But it's become plainly obvious that the quality of work, the quality of collaboration, that sense of belonging, people being in and around like-minded people is so much better for performance. And again, getting people all rowing in the same direction and speaking from the same, singing from the same hymn sheet, that it is key. And it's tools like the ones that we provide that enable a space to become destinational, that make people want to go back to the space without, like I say, cracking the whip and telling people that they have to be there because of these reasons. If you can get people want to come in from other countries and they want to go to that specific office to get their picture taken with that specific focal piece, that specific artwork, then you've also got a marketing tool on your hands as well. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons why people want people back in offices, and we tend to kind of play into that massively in enabling that.
And so, like you mentioned just then, in terms of content creation and marketing and things like that, are you building a lot more spaces now where there is opportunities for people to come and have their photo taken in different places? I know in the LinkedIn offices, absolutely everybody goes and gets their photo taken by certain things, don't they? It's like the thing to do if you go to that office. So how do you sort of bring a company's personality and create those sort of visual spaces that work as an office, but also online?
Yeah, the word Instagrammable comes up in a lot of briefs now. And what you want to do is you want to try to create something that's got heart, that's got authenticity, that people want to take a picture with or people want to be proud of displaying because it means something to them rather than it just looking cool. But we can also do that. So it's that balance of, is it show stopping? Are people going to stop and want to take a picture and want to send that to their friends and want to boast about where they are? But also, does it mean something to them? Are they going to rally behind that and be like, all right, cool, I'm in the right place now. Let's take our picture and let's do this.
Sounds as much like you're playing with psychology as you are with art and design.
Absolutely. And so much psychology comes into it in regards to senses as well. Like I was saying right off the top, most of the time the sense that gets played to most is visual, but if you go into a 5-star hotel, you'll notice immediately that all of your senses are being played with: textures, smells, things that put you in a warm, comforting place, or perhaps put you on edge, or perhaps generate that feeling of nostalgia. You're trying to get people to feel a certain way, and that can be different in different areas. You can come into the entrance of an office and feel that warm feeling like you've always belonged there. Where's this place been all my life? Yeah. But then you can move into the boardroom and maybe the temperature's down slightly, and maybe there's a different scent, and maybe there's artwork on the walls to let you know that this is where business happens and this is where the decisions get made. So yeah, tons of psychology. my wife's a coach, and every now and then when she gets a little bit of learning about how people work and how people think, I'm like, okay, yeah, let me borrow that. That's really interesting. That's fascinating to know.
Love that. So how do you create a space where you are your most creative then? How do you work? What's like your work environment like?
Yeah, good question. So I work from home mostly, and I've got a couple of other places that I like to dip into, mostly for either collaborating or networking. But I do prefer to have my little cocoon. It's funny. I like a balance. I do miss having a larger team around me where you can bounce ideas off people and you can share things spur of the moment. But I don't know, as creatives, maybe you'll be able to vouch for this. It's nice to just kind of zoom right in and go as deep as you can with nobody kind of looking at your screens and questioning something that you feel is only half done or a quarter of the way done. So yeah, in terms of physical location, I do like to have my own space and then reach out to people when I deem the time is right. But I also like to kind of fill that space with lots of little elements, and it's kind of how I live my life, really. I was thinking about it the other day, and I feel like I try to Darren Brown myself a lot. You know, that whole thing where he explains how he managed to get someone to think or feel a certain way, and they've gone on a taxi ride and they noticed a billboard that said something, and then they noticed someone on the corner of the street eating chicken nuggets and whatever else. And then that in the end formulates the sentences that they were saying back to him, or these ideas that they think they've created themselves. And I spend a lot of my life peppering things in so that there are cultural references, or there are turns of phrases that are kind of there at the forefront of my mind without me even knowing, and then I can kind of like pop them out as and when I need to. So yeah, I guess my perfect environment is kind of very culturally driven, and yeah, little elements that I think might work in some cases, either now or some way down the line. How about yourselves? How do you? Because like looking at the artwork and in there behind you, I feel like there's a similarity there. It's like everything that inspires you, kind of surround yourself with, so that you can kind of absorb it either knowingly or unknowingly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we're at home. This is our house. But yeah, like if I need to concentrate and do any kind of creative work, I just need to be left alone, and I need a big pile of snacks next to me, and I just be in a bubble. But yeah, we're surrounded by art and music, and everything we do is kind of tied into that kind of cultural side of the things that we're into, for sure.
I went to an artist's studio the other day, a guy that I've been collaborating with for the past few weeks. And he took me into this sort of cave of all of his work ever. Like I kind of get the impression with most artists that they create something and they sell it. If they love it loads, they might keep it on their wall. And there were just years and years and years of stuff. And I was just gobsmacked, and I was like, can I work here? Can I just work here for like a week and just see what comes out of my brain, you know? But it's fascinating. I love, obviously we're a lot more remote now. A lot more stuff's done via calls and via Zooms and whatever else. But I'll always try and meet another creative in person, if at all possible, just to know what their world is like and how they're trying to get to their end goal. I find it fascinating.
It's interesting. Everyone's got such a different process. Like you say, some artists will work in what looks like absolute chaos, but to them, it's all figured out. They know where everything is, and to the untrained eye, it's a squalor.
Totally. So, tell us a little bit about Motive then, and how you decided to set it up. Because you've been running this for 2 years now. Where were you before? What kind of led you to start this business? How did you get there?
I was at a company called Third Way, who are, I would say, leaders in the design and build world. So, and even before there, I was trying to get there. Like I was so excited when I had the opportunity to be there, and was lucky enough to make the role my own and to build a team around me. And I guess like most people, as happy as you are, there will always come a time where you're like, I think I can do more, or how do I push myself, or how do I get outside of my comfort zone. And that thought had been in my head for a long time. And I thought, do I go into marketing, or do I retrain as a different type of creative and see where that takes me? And then I ended up just taking a break. I took a sabbatical for 4 months, did a bit of traveling with my now wife, and as getting to the end of it, I kind of expected to meet someone or to have some sort of epiphany and be like, boom, that's it. That's where I'm headed. And I get in towards the end, and I was like, all right, I guess this is the place I'm supposed to be. And then we took an ayahuasca retreat. So we spent a week in the jungle, doing ayahuasca. For those that don't know, you guys, I believe, do know. You guys have done it before, right?
We're a little bit versed, aren't we?
Yeah.
A little bit of dabbling. Yeah. It's so for those that don't, it's of the psychedelic family, but it's more. I mean, they, especially the shamans, deem it as more medicine. It's a way to undo all of the rules that you created for yourself throughout your life in your head. So what you can't do, why you act a certain way. People often get worried that they're going to undo good stuff, but it's more a sort of unraveling of why you've gotten to the way that why you've gotten to the place that you've gotten to. And I felt a little bit guilty going into it, in all honesty, because a lot of people are there to undo some really traumatic stuff. And I was there because I felt like I just had this block in life that was kind of like holding me back. And I didn't really know how to move forward with that. And yeah, everything kind of panned out for me. We did a few sessions there, and it mapped out. It basically told me that I was crazy for having not done what I'm now doing. If that makes sense, a lot of past and present tense there. And it mapped everything out for me: who I should speak to, how I should do things, any sort of doubt I had in my mind. It allayed those fears by saying, if you don't know this, then someone within your network will. And it just gave me this. I also had a huge fear of rejection and failure, and I felt I'd gotten to a certain place, and who am I to shake the apple tree and see what comes down, because everything could come falling down. And it just taught me to be brave in a sense that I'm not going to allow myself to fail. I'm only going to learn more, and this is what I need to be doing at this moment in time. So yeah, a lot of the iconography I use, a lot of the terminology that I use within Motive's brand derives from things that I saw and things that I experienced. And I don't need people to know that, but it's kind of like an accumulation of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing.
A pivotal point in your life, by the sounds of it. What's your understanding of what you took away, that you were in conversation with something outside of yourself, or is it a realization that was in you that needed to be unlocked?
Both. Good question. It was. There were definitely conversations. There was definitely one in particular prominent being that I could ask questions to and I could get direct answers from. But yeah, in thinking everything through again and relaying everything that I went through, everything did belong within me, and it's like the most intense conversation you can have with yourself. Just like, I guess, therapy or coaching, you end up in a place that you didn't think it'd be possible for you to take yourself, or that knowledge that you didn't think you had inside of yourself. Really good question. Definitely a bit of both for me.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much my takeaway as well. My sort of final realization was exactly as you've just said. It was almost like a 100-year therapy session with my own psyche.
Absolutely, yeah.
But in the moment, it does feel like you're having a conversation with something external, which is why I suppose people mention God, don't they, and different things when they come away from the experience. For sure. What got you to that point where you were like,
all right, I'm going to do this now, or I need to do this now?
It's something I've been interested in. I think I've had a spiritual hole in my life. I grew up Catholic, but quickly shrugged it off. And I think I've spent my life trying to replace that with something else. And through research and digging, sort of ended up on ayahuasca as potentially an answer. And just followed that until eventually I said, you know what, I need to find out for myself. We didn't do a week though, like yourself. It was a one night experience.
We went, it was your 30th birthday, wasn't it?
That's
so
right.
We went out to Tulum, and it was 4 days before lockdown happened. So we flew out, and we managed to get the last flight back out of Mexico again. But
Mission Impossible. Wasn't it?
It was, the getting home was hard.
Yeah.
But we went out into the jungle, I guess similar to you, met a shaman, and I kind of went in with no expectations whatsoever. I was more just there to accompany you, really.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really fascinating, because I like you, I didn't go in with sort of, I'm going to go and deal with all this trauma or anything like that. So I'm going to go and have this experience and just see what happens and what comes out the other end of it. And actually the thing that I came out with was, I was just sort of being told that we've got children, and they were just saying, like, you need to lean more into like your feminine qualities and stop trying to be so masculine and stop trying to sort of be the man of the house and things like that, where I was trying to, I think, compensate for certain things, but actually it was saying, no, you need to lean more into your feminine side and actually like be a mother and like indulge in those kind of things a lot more. But so when you got back then, how long did it sort of take you to kind of process what you went through and think, right, okay, I have a plan now, I need to start doing this? Like, what was that implementation period like?
So I was just going to ask you, when you got back, how quickly did you feel like you could implement that, I guess, the new learnings and the understandings, or did you find that like life quickly caught up and it was difficult to keep hold of that?
Yeah, same. I think it was difficult to sort of, I think it took me a good few months to kind of think, okay, maybe I do need to start doing it. I think we were sat in the garden with your parents actually talking about it, and then I was like,
we went straight into the pandemic. So any lessons that we had were quickly overshadowed by 2 years of uncertainty and anxiety. It's a one, isn't it? You start to think, because you do come away with a lot of positive sort of lessons and learning and self-learning. But like you say, do you hang on to that, or is that a process that you think you need to repeat? Or I suppose it depends on how sort of
how willing you are to do the work.
And how transformational the lessons that you received were. Yeah,
we got told pretty early on. In fact, one of the first things we got told was, this isn't a silver bullet. You can't hope for this to solve everything. 50% of the work is going to be done here, and 50% of the work is going to be the rest of your life. Like, you gotta keep training that muscle. And we were very fortunate in that, because we were away traveling, we still had a few weeks. I think we had a month after that in the States. And we were able to just ponder it and journal. And because I had this new sort of sense of belief and understanding that this was the exact lane that I should be in, I was really hungry to just get going with it. But I really had to kind of calm myself down and try to absorb everything whilst we were still away and having that time for ourselves, and try to kind of put all of that into what I was going to be doing as soon as I got home. And then, as soon as we got home, it was pen to paper, calling everybody that I felt I needed to, trying to get everything out of my brain and into this world that you start to try to create. But it is so difficult to keep those learnings with you and to not get carried away with. I had to go and do I came back home, handed in my notice, had to do 3-month notice period of coming into that office every day and being there for my team and being there for the company, whilst also being so desperate to get on with what I saw as the rest of my life. And also trying to bring in those learnings that we'd had whilst we were away. It was tough. I felt like I was ready to burst. but I think it was ideal in the kind of energy that I needed to bring to start my own thing from scratch, and to make something, as you say, the offering that we have is quite unique. It's not really that heard of. So to have that energy to be able to teach people about what it is that what we're doing, and why that could be relevant to them or whatever, it felt like it needed a lot of energy and belief and know-how. So yeah, it kind of worked out really well for me, I think.
That's good. It sounds like you found a really positive balance between the lessons that you received and then sort of applying that to everyday life, because there's got to be a balance there, hasn't there, between the sort of ego death that you receive in that moment to then reapplying yourself to the real world, because it's only useful to a point. You can't sort of walk through everyday life and be completely aware that we're all one and that nothing's real.
For sure. Yeah, there needs to be a balance between every day what makes sense for your life and the people's around you, and what it is that you believe this all is, and the learnings that you have. Yeah, it can be tricky. And my wife was there as well with me, and we have these, if we feel like we're veering too far away from I don't know what we were learned or what we were shown or whatever, we have little triggers and things to kind of put us back, whether that's rereading our diary that we were writing at the time. I've got like a necklace with the ayahuasca roots on it. So putting that on every morning kind of reminds me what we're doing here, what I'm doing here. Exactly. Even down to the music that the shaman were playing. We've got recordings of that. So if we feel like we need to go all the way back there, then we might have an evening where cut off the lights and we're just laying there, like listening to that, seeing what pops into our brain, kind of recentering ourselves again.
I love that. I love that you've brought like little rituals back with you and brought that into your everyday life. And like with the branding for Motive, was any of the branding sort of designed around those kind of elements of, I don't know, sort of your journey with that, but also kind of like the more spiritual, mystical side of things?
Yeah, for sure. All of the iconography that I use in my brand is derived from symbols that I saw or things that I was shown. I was fortunate enough to have a very visual experience. A lot of the people that we did it with didn't, and so it felt like I was being shown things that I was privileged to be shown, and I needed to see them to enable me to understand, to get somewhere. So yeah, a lot of the iconography there that means something to me. It looks beautiful in like on a crest or on a website or whatever else. But again, going back to what I was saying before, you can create something beautiful that someone might want to take their picture with or whatever. But unless it has that meaning, unless it has purpose and identity and authenticity, then it kind of falls flat.
I think that's something that everyone is starting to realize, isn't it, in the age of social media, is that the thing that cuts through more than anything else is authenticity, and the one thing that you can't fake, that separates brands.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because it sounds so simple to say to someone, just be your authentic self. But I'd say for most people, for me included, it's very difficult to know who that is, what that is. And I've been putting out, for a long time, I didn't put out anything with my face on it, really. No videos, anything like that. I wanted to do the work. I wanted the work to do the talking, and the concepts behind the work I felt were much more powerful than, me just smiling on camera. But since I've started doing that, especially the more sort of self-deprecating stuff, or the stuff that isn't the polished final outcome of like, how brilliant are we that we did this? I'm finding more and more out about myself, and the more that people say, it's so beautiful to see who I understand as you, talking through your work and all of those little imperfections there. And it's helping me understand, I guess, what authenticity means to me. And it's not just, I'm trying to be the best creative I can possibly be, or I'm trying to get the best for my clients or whatever. Like, authenticity could be, all of the B-roll for what you're shooting, all of the mistakes and all of the bloopers and all of that kind of stuff. Like, that's, people want to see humans. People buy people, don't they?
Yeah.
So yes, it's a complicated one. It's a tricky one that I don't think you ever stop working out. Like, what is your authentic self? But no doubt about it, that is the way to go. Yeah.
I think having had a psychedelic experience, that question becomes even more slippery as well, doesn't it? As true nature.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. Again, like you said as well, like whenever we start working with any of our clients, any kind of like personal branding clients and things like that, we just interview them and we just chat to them. And actually, when you're trying to figure out who somebody actually really is, like you mentioned, the B-roll side of things, even just little mannerisms that people do when they're talking, you feel like you can get a connection with and understand someone so much more just by sort of seeing the way that they flick their hair or like how they say a lot or things like that. Like you can get their personality so much more. So how do you kind of translate that with your clients? So say like you've just met someone for the first time, and like what sort of little secret do you have? How do you like Darren Brown your clients, should we say?
I've got a tried and tested list of questions, which go, some are the more obvious, which are about them or their people or their company, and some a little bit more subversive and like we've touched on previously, a little bit to do with people's psychological behavior. And I guess just like what you're doing here, the good stuff is in the conversational pieces. It's not in the pre-thought out questions where you're looking for a specific answer. It's those little bits in between of someone might reveal something about I don't know, their family or the way that they live their life, or there have been so many times where the deeper that you go and the more conversational you make it, something will just pop into someone's brain, like, oh, we had Dave from accounts actually every Christmas do we've had, he's written a song about the company. And in my mind I'm like, that's the first thing you tell me, you know. But like it's those little bits, because I think they're trying to perform as well at the start. They're trying to put their best foot forward in terms of how they want the company to be received, how they want to be received. And it's not until you kind of break down a lot of those barriers and it's just human to human that they start revealing some really sort of sentimental, funny, embarrassing elements. And you're like, all right, there's ways that we can weave this in here where they don't have to seem embarrassing, but everybody can kind of feed off that light, I guess.
Sounds like you've had a busy first 2 years, or certainly a busy first year, and then picking up in the second year. What do you think the future looks like for Motive?
Short term, I'd like to get. I work with a lot of people, whether they be artists or whether that be people, project managers, bringing the project to life. I'd like to get a more a core group of people that I can kind of have around me, that we're on the same page, a culture's being built, and that extends to creativity of all sorts. My previous team at my previous company, I brought in people that filled gaps that we didn't have, not necessarily that the company needed in terms of a creative or a designer, but if somebody could do something that nobody else could do, perfect. If somebody could enable others to think differently, perfect. There's only so much you can do as an island. Like I feel like I feel like people in general hype up the idea of a hero, that sole focus point of like, this person can do everything and they're flawless and they're faultless, and it's not the case. Even when you do have that figurehead, there's often a team of people around them, whether they know it or not, that's enabling them to get to that place, that's enabling them to think differently or to work differently, to innovate and to create. So yeah, it would be great to have a team around me, and then just build on that. I like the idea of offices are just a sort of vessel for the ideas that we currently have, but I really want to broaden that and apply our thinking to absolutely anything that people throw at us. And we've dabbled in a few bits here and there, some videography projects and photography projects, and even helped out clients with stuff that they've been pitching in a world that was previously unbeknownst to us. But yeah, I really want to kind of apply a sort of motive way of thinking to many different ways of life and different sort of creative methods, I guess.
Love that.
Cool.
Emotive way of thinking. Very cool. So final question then, because I think we've kept you long enough now. What is one thing that you wish you'd known at the start of your career that you know now?
For me personally, I felt like I came to everything quite late because I was who I was. And that was a very introverted person. And I guess kind of like what I was saying with my social media journey earlier, I feel like I could let the work do the talking, and I could just kind of sit back and, you know, have my little place in the corner. And a couple of people in my life let me know that I'll probably only get so far with that way of thinking. And you can kind of, and whatever the you is that you believe you are in your brain, you can kind of break out of that mold, not necessarily be inauthentic to yourself, but evolve, push yourself out of your comfort zone slightly, until you're in a place that you could never fathom you would be in. You're still most definitely you, but constantly look to push yourself outside of that zone. I think I would have gotten further quicker if I'd have been prepared to scare myself a little bit more. And now that's kind of all I'm looking to do, is to freak myself out and see where that lands me.
That was really well put.
Yeah, same. We just want to freak ourselves out too.
Yeah.
It's all good. Cool. So if people want to find out more about your work and the things that you get up to, where can we find you?
motive.com, at motive on Instagram. That's pretty much it. Hit me up on LinkedIn if you want a little business chat.
Cool.
Love that. Cool. Thank you so much, Rob. That
Thank
was
you, Rob.
so good. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. It's an absolute pleasure.